I was reviewing my spending for the first half of 2025, and I noticed something interesting. Excluding routine bills, groceries, and experiences, I only bought 25 new things this year, totaling about $1,400. For 6 months, that felt pretty solid. But it also got me wondering, could I go even further? That curiosity came to head when a nozzle on my garden hose started leaking. My first instinct was to hop on Amazon and buy a new one. It was only $20. But then I paused. I looked up what might cause the leak, and I found that it's usually a worn out rubber washer. I took the thing apart, and sure enough, that was it. I hopped back on Amazon to order this new washer until I remembered I had another broken nozzle in the garage. I swear, I have the worst luck with these things, but this one wasn't leaking. It had just dropped and I snapped the trigger handle. I took the rubber washer from that one and used it to fix the current, and it worked. No money spent, nothing added to the landfill, and honestly, I felt pretty proud of myself. I share that story because it's easy to assume that we're already frugal or intentional enough, especially in the FI community. But that moment made me realize how often I default to the buy new without even questioning it. And I want to become more intentional, especially when it comes to physical things. That's why I invited on Ashlee Piper to the show today. Ashlee is a sustainability expert and author of the book No New Things, a radical, simple 30-day guide to saving money, the planet, and your sanity. She's also the creator of the No New Things Challenge, which she personally followed for 2 years, which honestly is completely insane to me. Yes, that means she didn't buy anything new for 2 years straight. In this conversation, we dig into how to creatively meet your needs without always reaching for your wallet. Ashlee shares her super system, that is SUPER system, for thoroughly navigating purchases, and we run through a few real-life scenarios like getting ready for a wedding or gearing up for Halloween. If you want to bring more intentionality into how you consume, this episode will leave you feeling inspired. I hope you enjoy my conversation with the always resourceful, wildly entertaining, and sustainably driven Ashlee Piper. Well, Ashlee, I'm stoked for this conversation. You went 2 years without buying anything new.
Yep.
What's one of the more creative ways that you got something that you needed during that time?
Oh, gosh. I think, well, one, I was doing a lot of upcycling, I would say. This was in 2013 that I started doing what now is No New Things. And there weren't like as many resources as there are now. Now there are all these mediums for getting things secondhand online. You can shop for secondhand sports equipment and baby clothes and, all of these things. And those really weren't in existence then. People weren't really talking about doing no buys. There were not like free cycle groups that were very robust or buy nothing groups, things like that. Those just were not in existence really. So a lot of it I had to be kind of self-contained until I could cultivate those networks whereby I could share things or borrow things. But yeah, a lot of it was like me kind of just figuring it out. Like, what did I already have that I could upcycle into something that had a different utility in my life? And then where could I get things secondhand? And so those were kind of the two pieces for me that I needed to build out in order for it to be successful for 2 years. But I found I just became more creative. So to your question, what were some of the more creative upcycles or, ways that I was adherent to No New Things where I got something I needed? I needed a nightstand, and I made a nightstand out of like a wire overturned laundry basket, which sounds really ugly, Justin, but it actually looked really like Scandinavian and cool and mid-century, kind of like a Victoria chair, but just like as a nightstand. And I even had apartment therapy come to my apartment to do like a full spread of the apartment. Are you familiar with apartment therapy?
No, is that like a magazine or something?
It's kind of like I don't want to call it like a poor man's Architectural Digest, but you know how Architectural Digest does that stuff where they're like, oh, hi, Architectural Digest, welcome to my home.
Yeah.
And it's for like celebrities and really wealthy people. Apartment therapy is a bit more approachable, but it is very much focused on like kind of smaller spaces. And they do these great video and photographic tours of people's homes. And so they actually came to my home back in, I want to say like 2015, because almost everything in my home is secondhand or upcycled. And so they were kind of interested in that. And the editor who came with the photographer complimented this crummy little nightstand that I made from an overturned wire. Yeah, what's
That's a
up
win.
now? What's up now? Home goods. I felt accomplished, by that. But that would be one where I was like, I need a surface to put stuff on. Could this laundry basket that I'm not using, that is kind of cool looking, could I just flip it over? So that's I guess one example. There are tons of wardrobe examples and jewelry examples and like kitchenware examples and stuff like that. But that was probably the most tangible, like big thing where I was like, wow, okay.
And I can feel you're still proud about that, which is awesome.
I'm damn proud. It's no longer my nightstand. I ended up, I think, giving it away in my Buy Nothing group, but I'm proud of it, man.
That's cool. What was one of the first new things that you bought after that 2 years?
The first new thing I bought was a gown, like a dress. I was going to like a gala for my first book, and I just wanted, I was like, let's do it up. And I saw a dress that I thought was really arresting and beautiful. And that's the thing I bought. And I didn't feel bad about it at all. It didn't feel strange. I think because I had 2 years where I was really honing in on what's a want and what's a need and understanding my impulses around shopping and consumerism and marketing. I think for me, it felt like a very pure, like I knew this was a want. It was something I knew I was going to like, and I still have it.
That's cool.
10 years later, I've still got it. And
part of you wasn't like, man, I really want to keep the streak going of not buying new things? Or were you kind of like, okay, ready to make a purchase?
That's a great question. I think that for a while, it was very much about keeping the streak like pure, and which is such a weird state.
No, I totally get it.
But it was, you can get very like monofocused, like this is what I'm doing. And I think then after about maybe as I entered into or was kind of getting toward the second year, I thought like I realized so many of the tenets of no new things became habit to me. Like they were just sort of automatic, and they still are. And so it became like, for me, that became the triumph, was like, oh, it's not a complete moratorium on buying new things. It really is that I've just completely cleared out and changed my habits and my attitudes around consumption. And that was like the success for me. It had just become automatic. So I didn't feel bad about it at all, in fact, but I also didn't feel this high that people feel when they buy things. Like, everything, I almost kind of describe it like, I don't know, like, when you're in, I don't know, when you're in like a relationship that when you're younger maybe, and it's like wild, you're like, yo, it's high highs, low lows. You're like, what? Shopping is kind of like that. Like you get something and you're like, yes. And then it arrives to you and you're like, no, it's not. And you forget about it or whatever. That's kind of the relationship a lot of people have with consumerism. And when you do something like probably what a lot of your listeners are doing, how they live, where they're not necessarily impulse buying everything, it really almost changes the intensity of every aspect of the experience. So the longing is less, the wanting is less, and acquiring something feels less exhilarating. It just is. You're just buying something. And so that for me it wasn't like this big moment where I was like, pop the champagne, I've bought something new. It was very much like, I bought something new. Okay. And it just felt very kind of one note, like very even keeled.
The reason I asked that, I'm going through this own dilemma in my own head too. I have a streak going. I run every single day, at least 2 miles. And I've done that for over 3 years at this point in time.
That is so impressive. Rain or shine.
Rain or shine, 2 miles every day. And at this point in time, kind of like you were talking about, it's like semi-automatic. Like it's almost like brushing my teeth. But I know there will be a moment where I'll need to break the streak. Like injury is probably the only thing that would put me out. But we have a couple of big things coming up. We're thinking about taking a trip to the Arctic next year. And we got to be in this little tiny boat. And I'm like, and I travel for multiple days. I'm like, how would I run 2 miles on this
around
little
the
boat?
boat?
Yeah, I guess so. Same. My girlfriend took a African safari. And it's a very fenced-in resort area. And like, I'm like, I don't know what I would do there. Would I like kind of run back and forth across the 100 yards of like the place in order to get it? Or would I allow myself to take the day knowing that like the whole identity isn't keeping the streak alive every single day, but just the identity that I do typically move my body and do some kind of exercise every day. So I'm kind of like going through this dilemma that one day I'll have to probably come to an understanding and let go of the streak, but that isn't what I'm really building this all upon. It's really this like grander vision of like me wanting to make sure I'm active and healthy from a daily habit standpoint. I'm curious kind of what the difference is between your no new things challenge and like a no buy challenge. Like our listeners will be very familiar with something like no spend January.
Yep. Yep. So no new things really is just what it sounds like. It's no new things. It is not a no buy. And I kind of, sometimes folks like to say, oh, tell us about your no buying new things challenge. And I'm like, this is not a no buy because I very much wanted to focus on the influx of stuff in my life and buying new things. But I did not want to minimize the things that actually held a lot of value in my life. So for instance, people who do no new things, if they choose to do it as it's outlined in the book, which again, I'm like, this is choose your own adventure. If you want something very prescriptive, I give it to you in there, exactly how it worked for me and how it's worked for other people. But if there are certain elements that aren't going to work for you, it's okay. There's no sheriff here that's going to be like, that's not how it is, or it's not like 75 hard where you mess up or something.
You got to start back on day one.
Start all the way over again. It's not like that. So to me, it was really important to spend money on the less tangible things in our lives, like experiences, going out to eat, vacations, being generous, like charity and, giving money to causes you care about or supporting family members financially, like whatever that looks like. And then obviously there's paying bills and, stuff like that. So all of those things are allowable in no new things. It really is just more the way it differs from a no buy. A no buy is very much like we're just not, or a no spend is like we're just not spending in January unless it's absolute necessities. Going to the museum is not a necessity. Going to the Arctic is not a necessity. But does it make your life better? For a lot of people, yes. And does it make your life better in meaningful, tangible ways? Yes. I would argue that a cheap gadget from Temu, or I never know how to say it, Temu or Shein or Amazon that we're so habituated to buying because we're always buying stuff isn't going to make your life better or add that kind of value that experiences or being generous or whatever it might be will. So that's really the difference. No new things to me, the way I kind of describe it in a nutshell is like it is looking at, as far as your thing related needs in your life, a more circular community-based way to get those needs met instead of a capitalistic consumerist way to get your needs met. And so, of course, with that dovetails all these other things like saving money and helping the environment and, maybe like building community. Like all of those are ancillary benefits of no new things.
Yeah, it's super interesting. The financial independence community is probably tangential or has some overlap with a lot of other communities like the zero waste movement, minimalism, sustainability in general.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people enter that space out of monetary need. They're trying to reduce their expenses and reach their financial independence number. And that's really the reason why. But then a lot of people I notice continue that habit or those principles because they recognize it's a better way for them to live. Like having less things, the maintenance of those things, the sustainability of those things, even as they can now afford to buy new things, they still don't really want to. And I find that really fascinating and interesting.
And you've hit on something, I mean, it's so true. And all of these, like whether you're coming at all the gateway drugs to this, right? Like financial independence or FIRE, like all of these are kind of ways for you to remove yourself from a system we've been really conditioned into. And I'm not trying to be like capitalism is a trap or anything like that. But, we've all been kind of from birth taught like, oh, you have a need, you go buy something for it. Like, oh, you're feeling a kind of way, go buy something. And when you remove yourself from it via any of these various movements, it loses its luster so fast. Like you kind of realize like that exchange that we've been conditioned into isn't very satisfying. And maybe it never was. And then you start to see all these other aspects of your life that kind of blossom in the absence of you spending as much time spending money on crap you don't need or filling your house with stuff or thinking about and managing all the inventory of stuff in your life. And it's very freeing and I think in a way pretty hypnotic and rewarding as well.
I agree. Let's continue to dive down that a little bit. And I'd love to talk more the history of consumerism. How did we
Yeah.
get here? Like, can you walk us through how consumer culture actually developed in the US?
Yeah, absolutely. This was a really big component that I wanted to have in the book. I didn't just want it to be like, here's your 30-day challenge. I
Yeah.
really wanted to give people, I mean, not only do I teach marketing at universities, but I wanted to give folks the background of like this great and powerful Oz that is consumerism and really overconsumption, especially in the United States. So you can track it extremely, it's very identifiable immediately post World War II. So during World War II, I think a lot of folks are familiar. The culture was so much of collectivism. We are making sacrifices for the war effort. There were rationings going on and victory gardens, and they were not spending money. Every bit of effort was really going toward the war effort. After World War II was won, there's all sorts of things that happen that create this kind of perfect storm that leads us down a path of consumerism. One, you have a pretty well-documented phenomenon of women and other more marginalized people who were working in factories and keeping the home front afloat. You also have mostly men who were coming back from Europe and other areas, other theaters of World War II, who were coming back to the United States and they needed jobs. You have a really well-honed industrial machine that we did not have to that scale before. I mean, the way that we industrialized and mobilized industry for World War II, especially in the United States, was unlike anything we've seen since. It was an absolutely Herculean effort, and we stood up a significant amount of industry and manufacturing. And then you also have war bonds. Many people were buying a lot of war bonds in the United States, and folks were not spending any of their discretionary income. And then attitudinally, you had people who were starting to get real fatigued with this idea of moderate consumption because they'd been doing it for a while. If they were old enough, they were hit with the double whammy of the Great Depression. And then we went into World War II not too long after. And it was just like, give us a break. And so this idea of what a successful, victorious society does completely changed. It completely shifted. And so, one, you've got men coming back and they are taking jobs in factories that women otherwise were kind of holding down the fort on. And so you have this mass exodus of women from the workforce who then were home. And a lot of folks got married very quickly as well. And that's just important because you see things like the advent of the suburbs. People are leaving cities. They're moving into kind of more isolated insular communities outside of cities. Multi-generational living is kind of not a thing anymore. So there are a lot of cultural norms that bred community that kind of left us. But logistically, you've got men going into the factories. Well, what are these factories going to make now? Because we don't need propellers and we don't need parachutes and the trappings of war that these factories were making. So how do we pivot these factories to make things that American consumers might buy? And so as this attitude is kind of coming up like, we're a victorious society. We deserve good things. We deserve nice things, big things, new things, convenience items. Factories start to make those things. They start to conceptualize things that most people had never even thought of. Automated washing machines. That was just like not a thing, stuff that dishwashers, flying vacuums, like just crazy stuff. If you look at advertisements from post-World War II for household goods, it's like very futuristic feeling. And some of it, like these items we've never seen since, but there were like, this thing will fold all your laundry for you. Well, we're still waiting for that. I don't know where that is. But there was a lot of this kind of notion of, this is what we deserve. This is what people who win wars live like. So we also start to see, and you can track it, we start to see like bigger homes, 3 times the size that they were before World War II. More cars, larger cars. Meat at every meal. It used to be meat was more of kind of a luxury item, and then it was like, meat at every single meal. Clothing that you could buy off the rack, which I guess we would call like fast fashion or something, but it used to be you could not just go into a store and find something that would fit you, especially if you're a woman. You would need to get it tailored or make it yourself or whatever the case. And we also see the rise of plastic. So this is really where you can also see the environmental dovetails to this, is we're producing more than we ever have before. There's a focus on convenience items, bigger, more, better, newer. And people have the disposable income to buy it. They have the space to put these things in their new suburban homes that are 3 times as large as they used to be. And I don't know if you've seen like Mad Men, but like there's that scene where they're picnicking, and then when they're done picnicking, he just shakes out the picnic basket and leaves all its trash there. And there's like plastic everywhere and stuff. Plastic, what really is a pretty young material, but the proliferation of it during like post-World War II is incredible to see the rise of it, how much it was. And that's because it was considered kind of better living through chemistry. So we start to see harmful global emissions also skyrocket during this time. And it absolutely intersects with the ramping up of industry for consumer goods post-World War II. And that's also when we see marketing and advertising ramp up as well, hence Mad Men again, because these agencies were like, we got all these flashy things. How are we going to market them to people so that they buy these dishwashers? And you've got all these women at home who are captive audiences looking at the TV, reading the magazines, you know, going, it'd be really nice if I had a dishwasher. It'd be really nice if we had a bigger car, you know? And so it just continues this cycle where it builds and builds and builds upon itself into what it is now, which really is, I think a lot of your listeners would agree, overconsumption has become so normalized in the United States. The goalposts are always moving. So we never have a societal idea of what is enough.
Yeah. I mean, so much so that underconsumption is a trend now, which still doesn't make that much sense either. There needs to be a right size.
Yes, underconsumption to me means you're not getting your needs met. And certainly there are people out there who are not getting their needs met. And that's serious, and they should. But underconsumption is not, I only have 2 purses, not 47. That's not underconsumption, Doug. That's something, that's just, like you said, right sized. That's enoughness. That's whatever it might be. It's satisfaction with the level you have.
Yeah, I do hope that we do find a middle ground satisfactory in all of this. But it is really obvious as you kind of lay down some of the major pillars of the history of consumerism, where and how we got to where we are today. And then you were talking about it a little bit, but you have like women back home now, probably some of them not actually wanting to be back home. You know, many of them probably found purpose and fulfillment in work. Of course, they moved out to the suburbs. They're not in their home with their families anymore. They have a big space. TVs are now in every home, not in just one person's home. And then advertisement comes into play here. And you have this potentially depressed woman at home who has money to buy things, getting advertised a bunch of things that they probably don't need, but they think they need.
They think they need, and you hit on a really important point, and I didn't necessarily touch on it, but it's in the book. It's like a lot of these women were lonely. This is not something that we were taught when we are shown the golden age of post-World War II, the I Love Lucy, happy housewife stuff. Marriages happened extremely quickly post-World War II, and a lot of times it was either people may have been kind of betrothed before someone went off to fight, but they hadn't seen each other for 3 years, or they, got swept up in kind of the zeitgeist of pairing off, and they didn't know their partner. And so there's actually a good collection of letters from women at this time to their families where they talk about their husbands feeling like strangers, because they were. Because they were, if we're being real. Like, you don't see your partner or really interface with your partner for 3 years. It's still, and they're also engaging in something that's a very traumatic experience. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot emotionally to unpack there. So these women felt very isolated. Not all of them, but I think it's a piece that, like, history doesn't touch on the sociological component of, you move them out to the burbs. The burbs are like a little surveillance state where everybody in your neighborhood is watching to see, are you being a good wife and are you being a good mother? And your husband feels like a stranger. So of course you're going to turn to consumerism to fill your cup, because the other avenues whereby you might fill your cup are not there. And you used to maybe have a job that you got unceremoniously booted from. It's a sad situation, and we know emotional levers are always being pulled in marketing to get us
Yeah.
to buy things, especially now. But then it was a little bit newer. And so people weren't as wise to it.
Yeah, so we have these companies that are transitioning out of supporting the World War II efforts and into really producing consumer goods at that point. Advertisement becomes something that all of these companies do. And then even recently, I feel like some companies have gotten so good at removing all the friction from the buying process. Like I can go on
Yes.
Amazon and buy something in like 30 seconds. Like I legit, they
Yes.
have one click buying and they have my address and they have my credit card information. I might not even have 2 minutes to really rethink a situation like that. So I kind of want
Right.
to talk to you about how do we add more friction into the buying process so we eliminate some of the things that we want to buy that are just wants and not necessarily needs.
I love the reintroduction of friction into to make a habit, something that's become a habit,
Hmm.
less convenient. If we can make shopping less convenient, retailers are sobbing over that, but we are going to generally be happier because of that. So one of the daily action items and no new things, and it's probably a usual suspect for a lot of your listeners, is really to ruthlessly unsubscribe, mute, unfollow anything, not just retailer accounts, anything that tempts you to buy, because we are bombarded with more noise than ever before, more marketing noise than ever before. And I actually tell this story in the book, but I was doing Annapurna Base Camp in Nepal back in 2023. 2023 was a big travel year.
Yeah.
I was doing that in Nepal. So we were high in the Himalayas. Didn't have signal really for a lot of the time. You're like in, a different country. And I'm pretty unsubscribed from stuff. And as we reached Annapurna Base Camp, I got a push notification from freaking Walmart on my Garmin. And I was like, what the heck? Like, it is so insidious, like where marketing finds us, that you can be in one of the most like victorious moments of your life trying to stop your watch to see how far you've come, and you get an advertisement. A lot of times we don't even know that we've consented to push notifications, which are now kind of a darling of the advertising industry. We don't know that we've consented to, maybe even putting our automatic payments into a website, because we're so used to like the T&Cs and just consent. Okay, sounds good. Click a box. So I really encourage people to be very ruthless, not just with the emails, but also looking at like, am I receiving push notifications or text messages from retailers? Why? But then
It's
also,
annoying.
what are you, from even your streaming services? Are there ways to get out of like commercials if those are tempting for you? And then also who you follow. I mean, a lot of us forget that influencers, even if they're not promotional in nature, a lot of influencers, we feel influenced by just the things that we see in the background or the things that they're wearing or what they're drinking. And so if that is tempting for you or it makes you feel bad about the state of your life, unfollow it or mute it. And that goes for also people in your sphere too. Like I talk about, if there are folks who are your friends or your family where they're always on Facebook showing their new car or showing off this and that is making you feel less than and like you want to go and buy something, just mute them.
Yeah.
That's fine. Just mute them. You don't have to unfollow them, but just mute it. So corralling your social media, corralling like all of your kind of media and the way that you get information to as much as possible. It's not entirely like possible to get rid of all marketing messages, obviously, but as much as possible to cull that messaging. That's going to help. Another piece that adds friction is like you were talking about, the automatic payments. So I don't have any payment information stored on my phone or in any retailer sites, because just make that little friction of me needing to go and dislodge my credit card from my wallet and tapping in the number is enough for me to get like that precious. And data's kind of different around how long a craving lasts, especially for shopping, but it can be anywhere from 2 to 7 minutes, 3 to 5 if you're being more conservative. So you need that time. And that's what retailers try to kind of make. That's why they try to make the transaction really swift, because they know that if you have too much time to think about it, you may reconsider what you're trying to buy. So whatever gets you through that 3 to 5 minutes is going to be helpful. Removing your automatic payment information will get you there.
For
And
sure.
then I also encourage folks to do something called make a love list, which is before you even start the challenge, you have a list of non-thing related activities that fill your cup, some of which you can access quickly. So you can access them in that 3 to 5 minutes of craving. And some are maybe longer and more luxurious and more satisfying, like going for a run or taking a long walk with a friend or having a phone call. But I knew a guy who did no news things back in the summer of 2022, and he told me every time he feels like he wants to buy something, he does 25 sit-ups. and I think that's, I mean, I don't know what this guy looks like. I can imagine at this point, but I think like, hey, whatever gets you through. And that's adding some friction. And for him, he found it also benefited him in some way, got the endorphins moving, whatever it was. And that helped him to move through that critical kind of inflection point of the few minutes that you need to really rationally look at what you want and what you're feeling that impulse for. So having other activities that you can just pull from, like, okay, I'm just going to make myself a coffee, or okay, I'm going to listen to a song or something, whatever it is for you. And that's a very personal thing. I can't tell people what that is, but a lot of folks have found it's helpful to kind of add more friction and give them a little delay.
I know something that I use, and I know a lot of other people use, is just creating a wish list, especially on Amazon, and then putting everything onto a wish list. And then at the end of the month, I usually pick one thing that I can buy off that wish list. The funny thing is, though, more times than not, I delete more than I buy. Like, I look at that list and then I'm just like, you know what? I thought I wanted that a couple of weeks ago. I don't really care about it. Or I found it through a different means. A friend was giving it away, or I found myself at a garage sale and I found it for way cheaper. There's just like so much serendipity happens in your life that if you're really needing something, it ends up showing up in your life. And I just putting 3 to 4 weeks of time behind something, a lot of times you either get creative and figure out how, or a different option, and or you just realize, actually, I didn't want it in the long run.
100%. I love that you said there's so much serendipity in it, because that does kind of start to happen when you're like less wedded to, I need to get this thing new in my cart. You ease up a little bit and all of a sudden you're like, oh, my friend's getting rid of this. Sick. I actually needed that, or I was kind of wanting that, or whatever. And those like coincidences I think are quite sweet and like make you think, oh, this is a magical process. I'm a wizard. I'm a stuff wizard. And it feels a little bit more fun. But you're 100% right. Like, the thing I think folks don't necessarily realize about dopamine, which is often the neurotransmitter people talk about when we talk about shopping or other kind of reward center activities, is that it's released in anticipation of getting the thing that you want. Once you get it, it's already pieced out. And that's why we can really anticipate getting something, for instance, in the mail, or going up to the register and buying something. And then once we've gotten it, the thrill's kind of gone. And that's why you can say, like, people will buy things and forget about them in their closets. So that's really where, and there are so many other activities that can give us that hit of dopamine, but that come with other neurotransmitters, other hormones that are going to create a steadier impact for us. So like exercising, so you want to do the sit-ups or whatever it is, that's going to make him feel a lot better than just hitting add to cart and buy. And so you filling up a cart or a wish list, kind of still you're going through the motions that do bring some of that dopamine influx into your body. So you're like, oh, I'm stocking my cart. That's cute. But you're not enacting the sale. And so you're still getting the same experience, the same biochemical experience, just it's not the fallout from it, which is quite nice.
Yeah, definitely. So there will be a list of things that maybe aren't wants and truly needs, like things that you do need, or maybe just things that you really, really do want even after you've given it some time. You have this system that you call the super system. I'm hoping you can explain the letters real quick, and then I want to throw a few scenarios at you, and maybe you can help me creatively think through how you would procure this item without buying it.
Awesome. I love it. So again, no new things is very much like a circular way of looking at getting your stuff related needs met, as opposed to a capitalistic consumption way. So the super system is kind of a guiding principle, and we all love acronyms to help us remember things. So it's a guiding principle on the other ways you can get your needs met if you need a particular thing during the challenge. So the S stands for secondhand. That's pretty self-explanatory. It can be everything from going to your brick and mortar consignment or thrift store or charity shop to buying secondhand online. Then there's U, which is upcycling, repurposing, and reimagining. That's really working with what you have. Think the nightstand, the laundry basket turned nightstand, or, you need something like a coffee mug for work. What are you going to do? Or you need a planter. What are you going to do with that? So upcycling, looking at the items you have, not just as having a single use or one piece of utility, and instead seeing endless possibilities there. The P is pay nothing, and that's getting things for free. So I live in Chicago. There's a pretty vibrant alley culture here. I know in New York City, there's a vibrant stooping culture where people leave things out, and it's kind of an unspoken thing, like this is what we do here. Have at it. Buy nothing groups are a great indication of this. Free cycle, or say you get something, like you said, from friends or family, and you happen upon it and you pay nothing. That's pretty cool. The E is really about like gift giving, but also gift giving for yourself, and that's experiences. So as I touched on, this is not a no buy challenge or a no spend challenge, because I really do think that experiences enrich our lives. So if you're giving someone a gift, you could give them an experience gift. You could go do that experience together. You can go to concerts, museums, restaurants, on vacations. You can go and get your hair done, like whatever it is that enriches your life. Those things are still very much on the table, and they are not things. Like shorthand, we say, oh yeah, I'm doing this thing, but really like it's not a tangible hold in your hand thing. And that also, experiences also extends to being generous and, for instance, like donations to organizations and causes that you care about. And then there is R, which is renting, borrowing, and sharing, which I think has since become so much more popular, and I'm really grateful for that. So that's everything from, hey, I need a tool to finish this home project instead of buying it. And Americans are obsessed with having like a Noah's Ark of stuff in their home, even if it's something they use once or twice every few years. You can rent that. You can rent it from Home Depot. Maybe you're lucky enough to have a tool or stuff library near you. We're just kind of starting to get some of those where I live, and it's really cool to see. Maybe you're into renting clothes. Like, had there been more rental options for gowns when I had kind of stopped doing, when I broke my no new things 2-year streak, I might have considered renting a gown or seeing if I could rent that particular gown instead of buying it outright. So there are a lot of options there. And then borrowing from your friends, your family, your networks. I think borrowing has gotten a really bad rap in Western culture, especially. And I find that really interesting because borrowing is such a reciprocally satisfying experience.
For sure.
And it's how we like literally survived generations. So it's interesting to me. So bringing back borrowing is a big tenet of No New Things, both you lending out your items and also borrowing from other people. So that's the super system.
I love it. The borrowing culture, we can get into it. And I've gotten into that on actually a couple of recent episodes because
you have.
I don't think it's like a huge deal. And honestly, if I could let someone borrow one of my things, it's great. I feel good about it. I help somebody out. And that thing that maybe isn't getting a whole lot of use gets a use from somebody else, which is totally fine. Like it's
such
okay.
a nice shared experience, I think. Like to know that something you have can help someone else.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice.
So let me throw a couple of scenarios out, and you kind of addressed a few of these when you're walking through Super, but just kind of curious how you would kind of quickly think about how you might tackle this. The first one is, I need a new outfit for an upcoming wedding.
Yes.
Using the Super system, what might be a few options for me out there?
Your options are really endless on this one, big dog. So one, you can ask a similarly sized or very stylish friend, hey, do you have anything? Can I come raid your closet, or you want to style me or something? That usually is my go-to. I do a ton of TV segments, and so I don't have an endless Narnia-like closet. So it's nice to go to some of my friends and be like, girl, hook it up. Like, help me out here. And then I don't have an overflowing closet. So that's always like a fun first port of call. Then if you are looking for something very specific, you might be on Poshmark or Mercari or, eBay or whatever, all the various sites, Depop, and you're looking for the very specific thing. You want a Xenia suit or a Hugo Boss suit. You know what color you want. You have that element of specificity and you do want to own it after the fact. Looking for it secondhand is a great option. And there are so many options by which to do that. If you're less worried about specificity, but you know that you want to have this item for longer, you can go to your local thrift. see what's there. Usually, especially in the menswear section, it's especially
Tons of
rad.
options.
And get something tailored too. That's considered like an experience or a service and No New Things. It's like, yeah, make your clothes work for you. Like make what you've already got work for you. So you could get something secondhand and tailor it. Or you could rent something. Or you could also, all of the supers are really at your disposal here. You could also upcycle something you already have or reimagine something you have. And that's like one of the daily activities is to go through your closet and find an outfit that you've seen that you really like and make it from the things you already have or make something kind of similar to it. And sometimes that results in ugliness and sometimes that results in awesomeness.
I love it. I love it. What about, I want to start working out, but I don't have any workout equipment. How might you approach that?
Well, I would set myself to running 2 miles a day for 3 years.
I know. All I need is shoes and shorts and I'm good to go.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up working out because retailers actually call like our natural inclination to stock up for new hobbies, and working out is one of the biggest ones. They call it like the January 1st phenomenon because like come New Year's, we're like, damn, I need a treadmill. I need a rower, I need a medicine ball. And suddenly your whole living room's like, and I need the leggings and I need the shoes and all this stuff. So I think, being okay with starting something and seeing, is this going to be a habit? Is this even going to work for me? And starting small, like you don't actually, the supplies themselves don't build the habit for you, right? So I think if you were really in need of something, like say it is a supplies intensive like sport or workout, going on your local Buy Nothing group, seeing if people are getting rid of stuff. People in my Buy Nothing group get rid of Pelotons.
Yes.
I'm not joking. There's like stuff where people get in a mindset and they go, I need this out right now. It's got to go out of my house right now. And they're giving away the really cool weight sets. And, like my boyfriend's like that. He'll just get a wild hair and be like, I don't need this anymore. And he'll be giving away a water rower that was like $5,000. I'm like, hold on a second, wait a second. So you could see if there are people in your community who are getting rid of that. You could see if folks in your networks are getting rid of something. You could ask someone, I noticed you got really swole off of P90X. Can I borrow your DVDs? Let's just pretend it's 2002.
You're
and
funny.
that's what you're doing. But it's super easy to start smaller. And then once it's a habit, you can really supply up, and you can certainly supply up using all of those means. Like if you go on Facebook Marketplace,
Incredible.
people are getting rid of all sorts of things. I mean, like Lance Armstrong's like, here's my bike, and you're like, wow, this is crazy. So I had a friend who got into triathlons, which is a very, I would say, supplies intensive thing. You need a lot. Wetsuits, shoes, bikes, all the little caps, all that stuff. And she got everything off of Facebook Marketplace or Gear Trade.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is like a cool platform for used outdoor gear and stuff like that. So, I think secondhand and borrowing and getting for free is pretty much the only way to go with that.
I'm a very active Facebook Marketplace seller, and I can promise you there's a lot of things on Marketplace. And we've mentioned Buy Nothing groups too. And for anyone that doesn't know that, that's you on Facebook, you can look for Buy Nothing Austin. And I can join a group, an Austin local group. You typically got to fill out a couple of questions, maybe give your zip code and whatnot, and then you enter this group. And people literally just post, hey, I'm getting rid of this if anyone wants to come pick it up. It's great. I just had a garage sale last weekend, and I had a bunch of stuff left over. As I was cleaning up and kind of moving the things back in that I was going to keep, I just posted a picture of all the tables that had left, and I said, come over, pick through anything that you want. And I had like 20 people come over in the next 3 hours, clean
100%.
up all of the tables. I was left with one tiny box of things that I was like, okay, this is kind of the actual trash now. Like recycled a few things, made a donation box, and I was done. It helped me out. It got some things off my plate. It got in. I met a teacher that picked up all the notebooks for her classroom next
Isn't that
year.
fabulous?
A single mom that took all of the toys because her kids don't have toys. Like there were so many amazing stories that I heard as I posted this and as people came through and picked them up. So I think that's great if you're in a bigger city and there's a Buy Nothing group for it. Join it and you might find the thing that you're looking for.
For sure. And Buy Nothing, I think now has a proprietary app too. So if in your neighborhood there's not a specific Buy Nothing group, you can just post on the app for your city at large or your exurban area. And then there's also, Nextdoor and FreeCycle and Craigslist. There are so many options by which, like,
Yeah.
I search on Nextdoor free, and it's not as replete as like Buy Nothing, but the things on there, let me tell you, you can find stuff. So it's, even if you don't live in a super bustling metropolitan area like we do, the sharing economy and the gift economy is still very strong in those areas.
And I wouldn't even be afraid to just post on the social media of your choice that, like, hey, I'm like trying to get into working out. Does anyone have any gear that they're looking to get rid of? I'd love to pick up one or two things. Like, I would be shocked if a couple of people didn't reply to you and extend offers to, especially like workout equipment that ends up sitting around someone's house for a couple of years. It's typically big and bulky, and people are like immediately ready to get rid of it.
100%. And people want to help. That's something I think that we, like you were talking about, you love like lending things to people because it's a mutually satisfying experience. People actually do want to help each other by and large. And that's nice to have those reminders. So I love it. I think it's also like an ancillary benefit to all of this is that you strengthen your sense of community. You become more of an active participant in your community. You're helping other people. They're helping you. That just feels good. And that's also how we're going to get through a lot of difficult things that are out of our control. And so I think it's a really nice added benefit.
Let me throw one more at you, Ashley, and then we'll kind of wrap up this exercise. Halloween's coming up, and I don't have any decorations. Like, how might I decorate my house without buying new Halloween decorations?
Oh, gosh. So, and I talk about this in the book too, but Halloween is one of the most wasteful holidays in the United States, especially. So many costumes hit the landfill. We spend a lot of money. It's just an extremely trashy moment for us, which is really saying something in the United States because we're pretty trashy. This is a great opportunity to make, to do the upcycling, reimagining, making Halloween decor. I don't know. I'm from Texas myself originally. I know people take decorating their large homes very seriously. I mean, it is the birthplace of hiring people to decorate your Christmas trees for you and your homes. No shade, but like it's a business and a very serious undertaking there. But by and large, I don't think anybody's going to care if you've got some construction paper bats and some pumpkins made from acorns. I don't know. I think that's kind of cute and cool. So one, making it. Two, people are always, again, on Buy Nothing or on Marketplace or Nextdoor, giving away decorations they no longer need. And I will say, my local thrift store, which is nothing to write home about, is the place to get any kind of holiday decor. If you like to decorate for Easter, if you like to decorate for Halloween, if that's your bag, they got it. Christmas, the whole place is insane in there. So I think we've been, again, conditioned to think we've got to buy new if it's decorations. No, you don't. Says who? My grandma had decorations for 70 years in her basement. And then they're probably at the thrift store now. So I hope someone enjoys. But that's just a weird conditioning. So you can find anything you need in the secondhand marketplace. And you can borrow from people too.
For sure. Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity to be super creative, especially with Halloween. It's already this kind of creepy, weird holiday. If you make a decor that does kind of come out creepy or weird, it probably enhances the whole perspective of it. So go for it.
Who's to say you can't dress up and just lay in your yard frightening people? You could do that if you want to. You can print out pictures of your exes and put them all around your house. I don't know. I don't know what people do for Halloween.
And we are coming into the holiday season between Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. It's always a great idea to just go through your tubs and clean out at that point in time. This is when people are looking for that decor too. So every holiday, a month or two out, whenever my girlfriend and I start decorating the house, we take the tub out that we have of all of these decorations. We go through and we purge all, typically about half the box of things that we don't want. And then I just bundle it all on Marketplace and I'll post it for $5, $10, $15 and sell all of my decor to somebody. Or if it doesn't sell by the time we're really creeping up to the holiday, then I just flip it over to free and somebody always comes and picks it up. So I think it's a great idea just to take the opportunity to do some purging around this time.
Yeah, and this isn't, doing something like No New Things is not about yucking someone's yum. There are people in my life who are extreme maximalists. They love decorating for holidays. It really brings them joy. You can still do all that and just get your needs with that met in these alternative, more circular ways. If anything, it's like more cost effective too, which I think like secondhand decorations, those are cost effective. And how often do people actually use them? Not really, not that often. So it's good in all the ways. Those are great questions. You're good. You're like good at this.
Thanks, Ashlee. Let's continue that thread one more time as we're kind of closing up this conversation. And I would love to really ask you where we can find the balance between this intentional living and restriction, because I am a little hesitant to put an episode out like this because the FI community is already hyper frugal. And I don't want another reason for them to like double down on that, as you were just alluding there too. Like, if it's your jam to do holiday decorations, like go for it. And there might be ways to get those items that doesn't mean going on Amazon, filling up a cart and sending it your way. But I do, like I said, I want to find a good balance, because there's on one hand, like people that are one-click shopping and getting things at their front door every single day of the week. And then there's someone like your 109-year-old grandma who's like reusing tinfoil. Like, where's the balance in all of this, I think?
Yeah, that's for everybody individually to determine for themselves. I think the first thing I would say is that science shows us that having some parameters around things makes us more creative. So I actually say, like, no new things can make you more creative because creativity is like a muscle. The more you use it, the more you're kind of forced to use it and butt up against these parameters, the better you get at accessing your creativity. So if you get joy from something like that, then these parameters won't feel restrictive. They'll actually feel freeing in kind of a strange way. Two, the parameters are customizable. So if there's stuff like, I have a lot of parents who've done no new things. In 2022, I did a summer challenge on Instagram before the book was even a thing. And there were 12,000 people who signed up to do it. And so a lot of how the book is laid out and the challenge is laid out is based upon their experiential feedback. Like, what was the experience like for them? And a lot of people have children. They have like large households, so it's not just them. And people made adjustments to the challenge to make it work for them. And so there's not like even though the book lays out a prescription of what to do, because a lot of people really like that, it's not something that's so rigid that you cannot customize it to be more sustainable and work for you. And the third piece I'd say is that, at least for me, something like this feels more like liberation than an extra add-on of restriction. So for folks who are already pretty frugal, this isn't really a frugality challenge. This is just looking at, if you're interested in helping the planet along, right? Buying something that already exists or using something that already exists as opposed to buying something new is infinitely better for the planet, and also might be better for your wallet as well. So thinking differently about things, not just the price of them, is, I think, a really helpful way, but it also brings a lot of freedom into our lives, because you do begin to just further uncover how little you actually need, and how, like you said, that kind of magical confluence of, oh my gosh, my needs kind of got met. I didn't even need to go and buy something. I found this thing later, serendipitously, that kind of fit the need. And for me, I find that really exciting. And for other people who do it, they find that exciting and nice. I certainly don't ever want people to feel like this saps the joy from their lives. I think, if anything, and again, this is just me and like thousands of other people who've done it and shared their feedback, but I think that removing ourselves as much as we're able to or we want to from consumerist conditioning is kind of similar to being fiscally responsible, or like a lot of your listeners who are really, they have a goal in mind. As you're moving away from that, you naturally move toward the things that are more important to you. You get in touch with your values more, because you're not as distracted by the noise that a lot of us have been so conditioned to listen to, follow, just have ingrained in our lives. And that's very freeing. And that also helps us to hone in on, what are our lives all about? Like, not to get too deep, but like, who are you without all this stuff? Who are you when you remove your self-worth from buying the latest thing? Which so many of us do have, in some differing measure, a sense of our own self-worth that has to do with the stuff we have and the stuff we can buy. And so where are you on that? And what kind of meaning do you want to bring to your life? What kind of meaning do you have in your life when you remove yourself a little bit more from that? And I find that to be incredibly satisfying and not restrictive. I find that to be like almost it's taken blinders off, and instead I'm seeing my life exactly for how I want it to be.
Very well said, Ashlee. If somebody wants to join the challenge, if they want to check out the book, where can they get that?
The book is wherever you get books. I know it was important for me to kind of address the elephant in the room and be like, I know a book is a thing. I get it, guys. But there's an audiobook, there's an ebook. Tons of libraries stock it. If you go to your local library, if they don't stock it, you can ask them to, and they will procure it for you. And then folks can connect with me on Instagram. If they're into that, it's just Ashlee Piper. Ashlee with 2 E's and no Y. And I also have a Substack that I'm getting more active on, and that's called The Ethical Edit. And that's really just little reminders of no new things in practice, like how it's just become part of my life and other people's lives. And you know, if you need a nudge or you need any kind of glamorization of that, that's there.
Love it. Once again, this is Ashlee Piper, author of No New Things. Ashlee, this was a blast. Thanks for joining me.
You're the best. Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. After talking with Ashlee, I honestly don't want to buy anything new right now. She really got me inspired, and this is a habit that I want to focus on changing. I'm recording this about a month after my interview with Ashlee, and I've already become much more aware of my spending. Right now, I'm actually hunting for a new skillet. A year ago, I had the same problem. I love making omelets, but my old pan kept sticking no matter what I did. I bought this kind of cheap, new, nonstick pan, but it only lasted a year, and here I am. It's sticking again, and I'm frustrated. So instead of rushing out to the store to buy another one, I did some research, and I learned that clad or cast iron pans last longer. And I even figured out how to restore a dull cast iron skillet in case I end up buying one that needs that. So currently I'm searching on Facebook Marketplace for a cast iron skillet in the size that I'm looking that is maybe new to me, but not brand new to the world. I know there will still be times when buying new makes sense. Maybe it's for reliability or hygiene or honestly even just convenience, but I want to be more intentional about it. Lately, I've been trying to even become more handy and fix things myself, which has been a pretty fun challenge. And now that I'm living my coast-fi life, I actually have more time to slow down and do things like that. Like I talked about with Brian Sudduth's episode about reducing food waste, the concept that we talked about in today's episode isn't about being perfect. You don't need to completely eliminate buying anything new. I think it's really about making small improvements over time and giving yourself grace when you need it. Try to fix something or ask a friend if you can borrow it or buy something secondhand. And if you really need to go and buy something new, then it is what it is. And I think that's totally fine. So as I'm finishing up this episode, I'd like to flip things back to you. What do you think? Could you see yourself trying a No New Things challenge? If so, how long do you think you could stick with it? I'm kind of toying around with the idea of doing it myself, and I'd love to hear from you if you think that's something that you'd be interested in. Maybe we can create a community or a little group and all be a resource for each other. As always, you can send me any of your feedback after an episode at justin@fiminded.com. That's justin@fiminded.com. I always love hearing from you, regardless of if it's answering the questions that I'm posing to you in this outro or simply just giving me some feedback or an idea that came to you after listening to this episode. That's it for now. I'll see you in the next episode.